Greetings and welcome to Retention Chronicles, the podcast with learnings from expert e-commerce brands and partners. I'm your host, Mariah Parsons. If you're here, you're either on a quest for e-commerce enlightenment or you accidentally clicked the wrong link. Either way, I am thrilled you stumbled into our corner of the internet, and I hope you'll stick around. We've got pearls of wisdom for everyone, whether you're running a multi-million-dollar business or simply just starting out on your entrepreneurial journey. Before we unleash the brilliance of today's guest, let's give a shout out to our podcast sponsor, Malomo. Malomo is so much more than just another Shopify app. They're post-purchase wizards, making beautiful and branded order tracking smoother than a jazz solo, so our amazing founders, like our guests, can keep their customers happy and up to date while they track their orders. So hit that subscribe button, like it'll increase your LTV overnight, and go listen to our other episodes at gomalomo.com. That's GOMALOMO.com. Get ready for insights, chuckles, and perhaps a profound realization or two with this newest episode of Retention Chronicles. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Retention Chronicles. Super excited to have Liz here with us today. We were chatting before getting on this call, and I'm super excited to hear your take on email marketing and all things in the realm. So thank you for taking the time to chat with us today. Shout out to Mackenzie Bauer. She's been connecting me with a lot of awesome people in the space. And you are one of them. So I'm excited to get to chat with you here, Liz. I'm going to kick it on over to you to introduce yourself and tell our listeners a little bit more about you.
Yeah. Thanks, Mariah. I'm Liz. I own Nomadd Marketing. We're a boutique email and SMS agency. A definite shout out to Mackenzie and the whole Thread Wallets team. They're pretty amazing. They make sure that all of your stuff is like collected together no matter where you are. And so they're one of my personal favorites as a brand and also like to buy and also to work with.
Yeah. I have my Thread wallets downstairs hanging on my key rack, and it's just so convenient.
Yeah.
And like so
Yeah,
adorable, their designs.
I know. I had this aha moment when I first started working like with brands. My sister had one and she was like in college because we're like 10 years apart, and I like saw it and I was like, "You have a Thread Wallets?" And she was like, "Yeah." And I was like, "Oh, wow." I was like, they're everywhere because
Yeah.
I was living in Utah at the time and grew up in Pennsylvania, and she was in Pennsylvania. And so I was like, "Wow." I was like, "Amazing. People ship like across the country." So it was so
Yeah.
cool.
Weird phenomenon. I feel like I had like I've been in the Shopify ecosystem for 3 years, and I feel like I had a similar notion where it was just like everywhere now I look at like which brand is what, and like
Yeah.
seeing brands that I can recognize outside of
Yes.
like just seeing like, okay, what brands are my friends, what do they have, what are they wearing?
Also, you're like almost surprised at a certain point when you're like, "I
Mhm.
don't know this brand. Tell me more." Like that's
Yeah.
how I am now. I'm like, I've never heard about them. Like this is strange. I thought I knew every store that
Every
I could
single, yeah.
potentially shop at in the whole world. So
I know. And it's like so my like social media feed and everything is just like so targeted now. I'm like, this makes sense. Like
yeah,
I see a bunch of new products.
I
And
know.
then I like go down the rabbit hole of just like it totally gets me. Which I don't think is a bad thing, right? It's
Yeah,
yeah, it's just like interesting because now where I just never took inventory of except for
I
like a couple of
know.
things, right? But like just like seeing like, oh my God, like this podcast is sponsoring this brand, or um oh my God, this person is working with this, or they're doing a collab with this. Like it's just
Yeah.
it
I
becomes
also
very connected.
I like love knowing how much like people pay for placements on things now. Like when people are like, "How much do you think this celebrity charges?" And I'm like, "Well." I was like, I actually know roughly how much they probably charge. Like that kind of stuff is always so interesting. So
Oh, that's a fun. Yeah, I haven't had that lens of like, oh, I actually might yeah, be able to like pinpoint some
yeah,
details.
yeah, you definitely know. Like once you like are around enough. I mean, paid social is totally not my space, but I've heard enough from paid social teams on like how much certain celebrities charge, or like what types of products they will or they won't promote, or like how you can tell if a product is like a paid promotion versus like if it's just sent to them or gifted to them.
Mm.
It's super interesting. So
Is that because
yeah,
I think my best guess for like knowing is, isn't it now that like you have to put like sponsored or ad or somewhere, right? If it's like sent to them or no?
some of that, but there's also like certain ways that some celebrities
Mm.
will mention things in stories that they like maybe have gotten as gifts. But they'll never show like their faces. It's like very curated experience. They like never actually talk about the product, so they'll like open it and like look at it and like show it around, but they never actually like hold it up to their
Like
face and be
use
like,
it.
"Hey, I
Mhm.
use this product." You know, that's
Mm.
why it was like I don't know if you've seen that contour cube like wild promotion right now where it was like Kendall Jenner like actually talked about our cube and they like didn't actually they never sent it to her or they never actually like sponsored it. And it was like so rare that she like had her face in the shot and was talking about the product because it was like she had bought it and she was literally just like, I am obsessed with this product. Like,
Whoa, that's awesome. I'll have to
yeah,
go look that up. Okay. Wow.
you should look at the video.
Yeah, I most definitely will. I feel like yeah, like just from I'm not in obviously not in the paid media space either. And so most of the stuff that I'm hearing is like transgentle or trans, yeah. Um and it's like
Yeah.
through hosting this
Yeah,
podcast where people will talk about these different things. So that's very interesting, like knowing the ins and outs
yeah,
of like this is when someone probably was gifted it versus when this
yeah.
is paid.
It's ruined marketing a little bit for me, but yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, right. I feel like that's the lane I would go down. I feel like with like items being shipped to me now when I'm like actually
Yeah,
buying, because just like working at Malomo, um like my expectations are just so much higher now that I've seen what the potential is with like I want to know
yeah.
where my order is at every step of the
Same
way.
with email. My whole team now is like, I won't be fooled. I know an abandoned cart coupon's gonna come my way at some point.
Yeah.
Whether it's 2 emails down the line or 4 emails down the line, I know it's
Hmm.
coming. So like, where
Yep.
is
Yeah,
it?
exactly. Yep. And like the only thing that will surprise me or kind of like stick with me is when it's done really well or like really not
I'm
to
the
the
same
usual
way.
cadence.
Yes. Yeah. I had an experience with, I'll like never forget, Super Mush with the delivery. It was
Hmm.
like what changed my mind frame about like transactional like emails and SMSs because I got a product like, and some of this is obviously like luck of timing, and some of it is
Yeah.
also like incredible marketing. But I got a like text message literally like 15 minutes after something was delivered to my door. And they were
Wow.
like, here's more information about your product. And I was like, wow, what type of voodoo magic is this? This is incredible. And I was
Yeah.
like, this is like a perfect post purchase experience. Like, I talked about it for like months afterward last year because I was like, it was like mind blowing to me. Like, I was like so excited that it was like so on point. And it was like, this is like your next step. It's like, this is how you're going to use the product. And so I'm the same way. Like when something like really blows my mind now, I'm like a big advocate of it. So
Yeah. Yeah, I also remember seeing like Caraway's emails, like transactional emails for the
yeah,
first
yeah,
time where
yeah,
it's like
yeah.
their care tips right there for where you need them to like make
Yeah.
sure that your product is lasting longer than like if you ruin your pots or pans, right?
Or like Ruggable is the same way. Like I ordered
Hmm.
some stuff from Ruggable and I was like, wow, your like post purchase experience was like some of the best I've like ever seen.
Yeah.
So
Yep, love it. Shout out all those brands who are
I
doing all
know.
the things to I'm like I feel
Make
like I
us
need to
buy.
yeah.
When you can get a marketer to buy, that's when you know you've done an
Uh-huh.
incredible job.
Yes, yeah. Love that. Okay, so let's dive in because I love that we just went on that
Yeah.
tangent and I feel like we could keep going down it for like another 30 minutes. But
Yeah,
um
oh, for sure.
can you explain to our listeners or just give them a little bit more background on how you got into the space, what
Mhm.
interests you, why you founded Nomad Marketing and all that good stuff?
Totally. I'm probably very different than a lot of people. I was working in like big tech, big software for a while, and I moved out to Utah like 8 or 9 years ago for a job. And while I was working there, a guy on my team saw that I was trying to apply to work at like Athleta and Lululemon on the weekends and at nights. He was like, "Why are you applying for a second job?" And I was like, "Well, like unlike most people in Utah, I have like quite a lot of student loans that I wanted to pay off."
Got some stuff
So
to, yeah.
yeah, and so I was like, that's what I've been doing. And he's like, you should just work for D2C brands. Like there's tons of D2C brands around here and they would love to have somebody with your skill set. So he then actually ended up like starting a paid media agency and he hooked me up with a couple brands. And once I started working with them and I paid off my student loans, I was like, wow, this is like a thing that I could do. And I don't have to work for a big software company anymore. I can be a bigger fish in a smaller pond, which I really liked. Because when you work at a big software company or when you work for a big agency and you work on big brands, which I've done, everything is so locked and loaded that you have very little input, like, or
Flexibility. Yeah.
even when you have input, it's like very rare that it's going to get changed or that it's going to like move the needle or help anything. And it was super cool to help businesses that you suggested an idea or a concept and then see it go from something that you suggested here on a Zoom to fruition. Like it was
Hmm.
really cool. So I started doing it, and then a girlfriend was like, "When are you gonna hire me?" And I was like, I guess
I
I could
guess
like
now.
have yeah, like I was like, I guess I could like find more clients, and now it's a thing. So 10 employees, and 9 years later, here we are.
I love that you just said it's a thing.
Yeah,
I feel like
yeah,
a lot of people who get into the consulting space or the agency space kind of just say like, "Oh, there was an interest," and then I started doing it a little bit, and then just kind of
yeah.
blossomed. If like you're
It
good at it,
kind
right?
Yeah, and it's like I I never imagined like if you would have told myself like 15 years ago that I was gonna be like 20-year-old Liz. I'm not 35 yet, but almost. You would have told myself that I was gonna be doing this, I would have laughed. Like
Hmm.
I would have never imagined that I could figure out how to have employees and all of it, but it's been a wild ride and I'm super grateful for moving to Utah and what Utah has like been able to give me. So it's been
Hmm.
incredible.
Yeah, yeah, there's a great ecosystem of D2C people in Utah. Um,
Yeah.
I feel like even though I'm
It's
in Indianapolis, I'm like slowly tapping into it just because of,
yeah.
how connected it all is and like people knowing each other. Have
It's
had a couple of great
oh,
guests.
it's
Hmm.
a really entrepreneurial community. There's definitely other cities that are equally as entrepreneurial, but I was very surprised by it too. When I moved, I was like, no way. Like you think, there are other cities that you think about that are big, like Miami or Las Vegas or LA or New York. And I just never thought that Salt Lake was like as entrepreneurial as it is. And it's pretty wild to me even still when I get leads or when somebody contacts me and they're like, grown in the Wasatch. And I was like, it's like
Like
wild.
what?
There's so many brands that you like just wouldn't have thought that are from there that are from there. So
Yeah. My best guess is because that like the lifestyle of like outdoorsy type people who
e-
usually and like adventurous and like high achieving, would you say that's kind of
it's that and it's also BYU is there. They have a really strong entrepreneur program. They have a really strong business program. They also have a ton of tech businesses that are moving from California and Washington there because they're very tax friendly, all of that like good finance stuff that I pass off to somebody else to worry about.
right?
And there's a couple of things that made this really cool breeding ground for it. There's tons of 3PLs out there and
Mm.
warehouses. So I think it's harder to find people honestly that work like a normal 9 to 5 there than it is to find people who are entrepreneurs, which was such a change for me because growing up and like living in Philadelphia and starting my career in Philadelphia, that was like if you met an entrepreneur, you were like, do you work or are you a trust fund kid? And also, it was harder because like the red tape of starting a business, the taxes of like city wage tax, city living tax, like the startup fees and costs were really hard. And so I think it's just sometimes it's just like the economy of the city too, So Not
Okay.
that it's impossible in certain places, but it's like there's
Just
definitely
it's
friendlier
a great, yeah,
spots. Yeah.
foundation. Mm-hmm.
Yep. Yeah.
Yep. Okay. Makes sense. Okay, so let's dive into all things email marketing because obviously that is what
Nice.
you all are focused on.
Yes.
So I always love to hear because I want to like hear about successes, obviously, but I think there's a lot of learnings to be had and challenges. So um what are like are there any challenges that you're seeing with the brands that you working with, like whether it's just starting out or brands that are coming to you around like what are their biggest concerns around email marketing?
Um, okay, there's a couple of things. So one big thing, I posted this on my LinkedIn the other day.
Ooh, love it. I'm gonna have to go
There's
look.
a there's a there's been such a focus on performance marketing that there's this lack of creative marketing now. And there's this very big cookie cutter, like if this works for this brand, do this. And if this works for this brand, like cookie cutter, bake, repeat, like do things until kind of like you see it so many times that you just want to like throw up and then you never want to see it again. And not all audiences work like that. So, for example, there's a brand that I work with named Rags. They're kids apparel clothing, and they're a limited edition brand. Or there's another one like this, and that's really big for jewelry called Tristan Akaika, and they sell rings. And their audiences are super FOMO based. So when they're FOMO based, there are certain things that work for them than in email marketing. So like you can send out one email and one text, and what you're trying to do is push as many sales as possible through from that email or that text and sell out, right? But
Yeah.
then if you're playing for the sellout game, there are certain email strategies that probably like that are going to work for other people that are probably not going to work for your audience. So you and not maybe never work, but like you're going to have a harder time with a win back strategy because the whole reason that your audience came to you isn't necessarily because they're a wildly like a buyer who wants to be wildly educated. So somebody like Caraway, for example, that's probably a pretty educated buyer if I had to guess. There's less FOMO going on there. It's more people who are like, do I want to spend $300 or $400 on pots and pans and why? Okay, you're
Mm-hmm.
the best, but like, what are you doing that makes you the best? Oh, you're toxin free. And they probably want to get multiple touch points before they're buying something. And a lot of people will come to me and be like, you work with this brand, like they're getting this percentage of revenue from email marketing, let's rinse and repeat that. And I'm like, wait, hold on. Like, you kind of can't. Just like all content is not the same, right?
Mm-hmm.
All email marketing, like performance, isn't the same just because of your audience. So there's a reason that your initial audience that you grew started to follow you. What is the reason? And then what can we do to build a strategy and a program around that? There are some best practices that everybody should have, like welcomes, abandons, browses, session abandonments. But then once you start to get back to the post purchase, or once you start getting back to the transactional emails, you really have to think about your type of audience and like, what is it going to be that's actually going to pull them back? And email, another big thing or like pitfall is people will come to me and be like, so if we turn on email, that means I can turn off ads, right? And I'm like, no, man. Like, I was like, hold on. Like, email's like a retention game. It's for your current customers. It's to show your current customers love. So some of it is running big promotions or sales. Some of it isn't even that stuff. If you're not a promotion-based company, you can do loyalty programs and points. You could also send like some of our best emails all the time for almost every brand are emails where they don't even feel like a sale at all. Like some of our brands, like one of them is trying right now, just like being like things that our team thought were really fucking funny this week. Ooh, sorry, I cursed.
No, no, that's okay.
Okay. Okay. I was like, dang. Things
You're
that are
good.
like, and it's like just links and a digest of like funny stories that they read on the internet.
Mm.
They never mention a product. They never mention like anything salesy and it somehow crushes week over week, right? Or UGC content. And so I think everybody thinks that you can kind of like cookie cutter everything. And there are some best practices that I would say work like 30, 40% of the time, like all the time. And then there are things where you have to really start looking at your audience and combing through them and planning campaign and strategies around them. And you like need to like have a great pulse on your brand and the content that your brand responds to.
Yeah. So what happens, and maybe this isn't, I guess, on you all to help a
Hmm.
brand figure out, but if someone doesn't know exactly what is bringing an audience to, what grew their audience, why people are coming to their brand, like, is it maybe a brand has tried like education, but also a little bit of FOMO marketing, but also a little bit of like UGC or like celebrity or ads, or like maybe they've tried a little bit of everything and they're not exactly sure what is pulling the, I guess, what has the biggest piece of the pie. Is
Hmm.
is there a world in which you're helping brands kind of figure that out to then
Totally.
form their email marketing? Okay, what does that look like?
A/B tests, man. A/B testing stuff all the time. We even tried an A/B test recently with a client where we tested they were in two different like PR like publications. One was like pretty liberal and the other one was pretty conservative. And their team was like, I wonder if our audience is as conservative as we think they are. And I was like, let's test the content pieces. And they were like, what? How? And I was like, open rates. Like I was like, if we put in the subject line, like, same subject line, but we just change out who the media like supplier was, let's see who wins, right? Like, or let's see, maybe there isn't a like clear cut winner. Maybe it's a 49-51% split and your audience doesn't really care about politics, which is possible. Or we ran something, a two-way text. It was right around the time where Nick Saban and Bill Belichick
Mm,
were both like exiting football.
yeah.
And we had been making tons of sports references in campaigns. And we started to get like subscriber stats that we thought that while the audience was 50-50 split in terms of like how many people were in the database, almost 80% of the people who were buying were women. And that's like pretty common, right? Like women are the more natural like shoppers of any household. And this is a product that's pretty unisex, like men or women could buy it. It's a home brand. It's Pillow
Mm-hmm.
Cube. And so we ran a text like specifically like putting a bunch of different choices out of like we were like, hey, is Bill Belichick gonna go to Vegas? Is he gonna go to Washington State or DC? Is he gonna go tan with Nick Saban on the beach? I don't care about football. Why are you sending me this? And like, we just think that he should go like take a nap. And it was like a clear cut winner that people didn't actually care. Like, we had very few people who responded where they thought that they were going to go. So there are ways that you can test what content is going to work if you're creative enough around like coming up with a campaign schedule that looks like that. And I would say you just have to be intentional about your content. And especially with email, like a lot of people will come to me like it physically hurts my soul, like it aches when people will be like, you can just like slap together an email, right? And I'm like, I want to die. Like you
Not
could
right.
just yeah. I'm like, you totally can just slap together an email, but like, man, I would love it if every brand, like, even if you're sending less emails in a month, but you're way intentional at the beginning for like 4, 5, 6 months about what you're sending and how you're sending it, then you can start to ramp up and you can be like, ooh, this is really working and this isn't. Another big thing is templates.
Mm-hmm.
Like people like get the ick when you talk about email templates. One big thing that I've pushed my team to do this year is like I want every brand that we're working with to use templates. And I don't necessarily mean that that means that you're never changing anything, but I want the structures to remain the same so that what we're doing then is like at the end of the quarter, we're comparing like whoa, this template is far underperforming. Is it the content that's in the templates now, or is it the actual templates? But like when you have so many moving parts and you're changing up every email every time, and you're never able to look at the analytics of things and go back and compare and contrast, that's pretty hard for your email program. Because then you start to be like, well, did March stink because of the content? Or did March stink because like of the emails that were sent, like the designs? Or did it stink because of like the products and the promotions? You know, um, And so if you have like some certain things, like everything else, like if you have like a control and a variable to measure things against, that's when you start to see your email program like really take off.
Yeah. So I love that. And I, before diving into kind of like the ins and outs of the email templates and kind of how you're able to look across the board, especially like across different brands for you and your team, what's your, because like we have email templates for post purchase and we find like brands love when it's a template because it's easy. But what's your rationale when you said like people get the ick around templates? Is it just because that
Branding.
connotates, yeah, like it connotates that you'll remove the branding?
Yeah, that and also like when you look at like Canva,
Mm-hmm.
people or anything like that, Canva's awesome because it's stock, right? You're like, I can go in there and I can whip up anything that I want. I think tools like that, which are amazing, have started to give people like it's like, well, hold on, then everyone has seen it or everyone has used it. Like there are things about email marketing that are just general good practices in design all the time. You should have a CTA up above the like higher above the like third, so people if they're on their phones or in a desktop, they're not having to scroll to get to a button if they want a button, right? That's something that's like standard. Every email
Yep.
has it, like, or should have it, and like it's kind of like across the board. You should be designing like for dark mode and light mode. You should be designing for mobile first. Like those are some things that templates do killer well, like crazy well. Um, and I think templates don't have to mean that you're unbranded anymore. I think it just means that you're trying to outperform yourself all the time. Because then what you can start to do is be like, these are our bottom three templates. Let's delete, like remove, cut the dead weight, and design three new templates and see how those perform.
Yep. Okay. So is that what you all like you are
That's what we've
doing?
been
Is
moving to do.
so
Yeah.
the like bottom three templates and then idea is that right? Like it just keeps going up and up and up.
Yeah. And then also eventually you're designing like a template set for yourself. So then you're like, wow, I have like 35 templates. Now it doesn't even feel like I have templates anymore because sometimes too as businesses or like as marketers, you start to be like, I have to beat myself. Or like the brand, like I have one brand right now who's like they always want to like they want the last email, the next email to be better than the last. And I
Mm-hmm.
was like, you get like obsessed with yourself a little bit and
Yeah.
you're like, oh, what if they notice that like we used an email that looked similar to this last year during the sale? And I was like,
Nobody
nobody
notices.
remembers. I've been working on this account for 5 years, and if you would have told me that, I'd have been like, really? We use that? It's
Yeah.
because like if you're sending out an email and you have a million subscribers, only half of them are opening it. Like probably 17% of them are actually clicking through. And that's like 17% would be like pretty high. And it's probably closer to like 7 to 10% maybe sometimes, depending on the email. And nobody's remembering, like they're not storing this away in their minds where they're like, oh wow, like I'm gonna call them out if they use this design again, you know. So
Yeah. Yeah. You remember the feeling of like how when in the beginning of this podcast, we were talking about just like, oh, I remember what they did and that it was important and that I liked like, okay, the way that they set up post purchase, right? You remember like, oh, it was good.
yeah,
You couldn't tell someone the details of it unless it really, really, really stuck with you. And that
there are
might be
like,
one out of like 1,000 purchases that you're making a
and
year.
honestly, for me, like I would have to like I take screenshots of the ones that I really like and I save them on my desktop. I'd still, even if it's one that I was like really obsessed with, I would have to go back and read it to you to remember verbatim what I really was obsessed by it.
Yeah.
What I remember being obsessed by was the experience, not
Mm-hmm.
necessarily like the design or that it like was perfect in dark mode. I remember how I felt when I received it.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So, and I also think it's funny, like, because I write our emails for Malomo, and so when I'm drafting them, like we have our monthly newsletter, right? Regular cadence, and it's the same structure, but it's different content, right? But like I try and spice it up and have some puns and emojis and whatnot in there, and sometimes I'll find myself going into like, oh, I really have to like, what if like this is super similar to like last Valentine's Day, right? Just because it's February when we're recording, like super similar theme wise to like trying to make puns about the holidays. And I'm like, nobody is remembering that. And even if they
No.
are, then there's like at least some regularity to, oh, they know like this is a monthly newsletter. They're expecting it anyways, right? Like
Yeah.
there's some expectations that someone would have for getting an email like that there's the CTA a third like easily accessible. There's probably like a login or a sign in the upper right corner. Like there's just things that you wouldn't even think about that people would expect. Um so I
Yeah.
like the notion of like looking at templates and you're looking across like all the brands that you're um working with, right? To see like, okay, or are you breaking it
Yeah.
into like industry or like specific
We
time in the customer experience?
we definitely use like industry benchmarks. We also do compare each other like against ourselves too.
Mm-hmm.
And like there's one of the brands that we work with and they told me this motto for this year that I was like very inspired by. They're like, we're not worried about what everybody else is doing. We're worried about like wandered versus wandered. And so
Mm.
we're worried about like, okay, like let's beat brand over like brand to themselves all year, every year. Now, should we worry about industry benchmarks? Totally. But like I think for example, like someone like Red Wallets, like when you look at their industry benchmarks, it's kind of unfair almost because they're in the accessories business, right? How do you
Mm-hmm.
compare a $35 like crossbody bag or backpack to a like they would get lumped in with like big accessory brands, like not luxury, but like they would get lumped in with somebody like a Baze.
Mm-hmm.
Well, hold up, like their average order value is always going to be lower. They're always going to be in the bottom whatever percentage of that. Or their, like customer lifetime value is always going to be less. And that's not because there's less obsession with the brand or that the brand isn't as incredible. It's like merely because of price point. So
Yeah.
there are certain things where it's like with industry benchmarks, we take them as like that's one thing that I always take with a grain of salt. Now, if you can pull like a perfect industry benchmark, like your perfect competitors and compare that, which we do for all of our clients, that I'm cool with. But sometimes when you look at tools like a Klaviyo or anything like that, and they're like, hey, here are your industry benchmarks for the quarter, and they're lumping you in with like designer, retail, apparel, accessories, you're like, wow, this is like a really wide net that you're casting. So like I always suggest the brands like pick your competitors, also pick like your North Star, right? So like if you have a North Star company that you want to be like, compare yourself to those if you can, find their metrics. Because that's a better footnote and a better footmark for you, and then compare yourself to yourself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And also
Yeah.
people who are like your similar email database or SMS database size. Because again, if you're comparing like an email database of like 400,000 people to, 1.5 million, well, email can contribute way more for a company who has 1.5 million database than who has 400,000.
Yep. Yeah. Numbers do play a difference. And like the same way
Yeah.
that you're looking at them, like, oh, we should be hitting this benchmark, you also have to understand internally what your numbers
Yeah,
mean. And
like
like, yeah,
marketing
yeah, go.
math is incredible when it's like we provided 117% lift, but I'm like that's also still marketing math, right? Like I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, is it 100% 17% off of an email that like was never sent before? Because that's not actually a lift then.
Yeah. And like understanding attribution windows, right? Like different
Yeah.
platforms, different teams, different agencies, partners, whatever you have it, have like a different definition, right? So you just have to
Also
understand.
different like brand expectations and different brand positions. So
Mm-hmm.
like we have a brand who like they're trying to get rid of promotions like almost wholly.
Interesting.
Um, yeah, so they want to run maybe two big sales a year, but they like want to be out of the promotion game. You have to like understand the expectation then of like what your marketing is going to do, because compared to like an industry competitor who might be running on sale all the time. Or there are certain things too where it's like for example, I had this conversation with a client the other day. They were like, hey, like industry standard is supposed to be that like we have X amount of emails in the abandoned cart series, and like the last two should be discount focused. And I'm like, well, that's like from a brand perspective, do you guys want to do that? Because if you want to add discounts there, yes, they're going to perform, right? But like you guys as a brand want to be moving away from discounts. So like, do you or don't you? What's like more important to you, right? The revenue, like, and I totally get that, like, it's all important, but at sometimes you have to like make a call of like, is the brand voice and like the way that we want to talk about and stand for the brand more important than like industry best practice? Sometimes it is, sometimes it isn't. That's just a call that like the team has to make. Um, and so, or like number of emails, people, that's one of the biggest questions people always ask me is they'll be like, how many emails should we be sending in a week? And I'm like, totally. Some of it depends on what your audience will take. Like, there are certain audiences who are like, this is abusive, please stop. And then there are certain audiences who like are like, email me all the time. Like Built Basics. I don't
Mm-hmm.
know if you follow them. They
Yep.
text all the time. Like they text more than any brand like that I've ever seen. And but that's just like I haven't unsubscribed because I'm like, well, I kind of expect that from them now as a brand, right? And so one of the brands that I work with came to me and they were like, "Hey, we've been seeing that this brand is texting like 6 or 7 times like in a week. Do we want to do that?" And I was like, "Totally can." But you also have to be aware of like the billable spend there. You also have to be aware of like, is that something that your brand voice wants to fall in line with or not? You know, because a couple months ago you told me that customer service told people to lay back because we were getting too many text messages, so we pared them back. So it's like sometimes there's choices there that you have to make where it's like I see somebody doing this and I'm like, okay, we need to have like diamond hands here, and like just because you see it somewhere else doesn't mean we necessarily like need to do it. It might work for you, we can test it and try it, but it also might not, and it's okay if that's not your brand voice. Like you don't have to be like everybody else.
I love the phrase diamond hands of like picking and
Yeah.
choosing what you want to follow. I haven't heard that one. Um,
Yeah, I think
I-
I got told this. This was like when I was like, I was like literally at like Vegas once, but when somebody said it to me,
of course.
but it's like, yeah, they're like, you have to learn how to hold. You need to have diamond hands. So like, imagine like you have like valuable diamonds in your hand, and someone offered you a good deal. Because like I sometimes am this way where I'm like, the deal's good, take it, you know. And
Yeah.
it's like, wait, this is my first deal. Like I need to learn to like hold and like take a deep breath and be patient and like see myself through to like the bigger picture. But that is hard in the moment. Like especially around Black Friday, I get panicked like calls or texts like that from clients all the time where they're like, this brand is doing this. Like, should we have been doing? And I'm like, no. Like, you know your margins, you know you shouldn't have done like up to 70% off. Like, if you really feel like sales are flat, we can do something, but like diamond hands.
Yeah.
So
And odds are, like, if you're in Black Friday, Cyber Monday, especially, it's so chaotic that you already have been planning for your strategy. You're
yeah.
probably better off just hunkering down instead of like trying to spin something up really quickly and then like pushing play. And then it probably won't be nearly as good as it could have been if you had
Or
just left
also like
you already
that's
had.
100% of the mistake. Well, maybe not 100. I'm okay. I'm going to say 95%
99.
of the mistakes. Yeah. 95% of the mistakes that I've seen my team or like a marketing team make is because you're moving like that. Like you made a decision, and it is great to be flexible and nimble. There's totally a space for that. But there is also a time where you need to like hit the brakes a little bit and have people check you and be like, hey, is the juice worth the squeeze here? And also, like, do I have the right team in place to move this fast and to make this decision? Because, like, there's always something that happens there where it's like, hey, we've decided to run a last minute discount. And then you get like a panic text where it's like, hey, I forgot about like all of these items that are like $16 and now people are getting them for like $3 because they were on sale. We decided to run a site-wide sale. And I'm like, I mean, this is what happens when you texted to do this last night and we turned it on this morning. You know what I like? It's like that's just like
Things fall through the
human.
cracks. Yeah, they just
Yeah,
do.
that's just like human until like robots or AI is running everything. That happened at some point. Like this
That's
is
for
how
our
it's gonna
next
work.
episode. Yeah.
Yeah. Although sometimes like Chat GPT isn't always right. I'm like,
Oh no, it's like super unfactual. Yeah, you have to check. That's like part of the not preface or like caveat, but like they quite literally say, yeah, it'll sometimes spew out lies. So you have to know. And I've like
I
tested it
got
on
in
like
like
Malomo too.
dude, I got in an actual argument with my chat GPT girl. I was like trying to like come up with some funny wedding hashtags for a girlfriend that's getting married.
Uh-huh.
And I was like, do you even understand the concept of wedding hashtags? Like these are garbage. And she was like,
Definitely not. Yeah.
garbage is subjective. And I was like, no, these are trash. This is
Oh my
not a
God, it
subjective
said that.
thing. I'll send you a screenshot. She was so saucy with me. And I was like, whoa, first of all, your computer, don't get like this.
Yeah.
I will turn you off.
Yeah, exactly. I still hold the power. Yeah, I feel like there's a lot of social media trends where it's like people doing that right, where it's like, especially with the image ones, where it's like create
Yeah.
this, but they're mad and it's like something stupid like a fruit or whatever, right? And tells a whole storyline.
It's like
But
more.
yeah,
Make them
yeah,
more.
exactly.
Make
Like
them do
give me
that.
more, yeah, give me more energy, whatever it is. Um yeah, so I agree. It's um yeah, it's one of those things that is like you're probably just better off sticking to your own strategy and like tale as old as time.
Totally.
Um you'd also mentioned that like someone's trying to get away from the promotion game. What would be like a rationale that like that brand is, why would someone want to move away from like the promotion side of things of like
I'll
running a
send it.
ton?
I will after this call send you a link to somebody
Okay.
posted about it on LinkedIn, and it was like they did the formula and they did the math on like not offering a welcome offer. But
Mm,
some of the thoughts around not running as many promotions is basically like the whole idea and the whole concept of running a promotion, especially like on welcome, is that you're just trying to get somebody in the door and to buy, and then like sometimes they fall off, right? Like they
yeah.
buy once and then like now it is your job with like the product or with marketing to try to keep them, but okay, that doesn't happen all the time, obviously. But what happens to your consumer who has been buying from you? So like
Mm,
when you stop running promotions like all the time, or like when you don't run flash sales, um, what happens from the person who like you're basically like rewarding your first time buyer and then you're never rewarding your like loyal customers. So
gotcha.
their concept is trying to figure out ways to build like loyalty programs and build in other perks or things for their loyal customers and their loyal clients and grow that base while also still trying to grow their new user base. And they don't want to always just grow their new user base by throwing a discount at them and hoping that they buy. Like they do believe that they have like an incredible product. Therefore, they want you to buy because of the product and because of the branding and because of the mission and the messaging, not necessarily because of a deal. Now, they do run two big deals every year, but they pulled away from running like a ton of different flash sales, or they pulled away from running like running into an inventory situation where they're just like, oh, you know what? Like, we have way too much stock of this, so we're going to run a sale. And because they decided to be less promotional based and more intentional based, they've also really worked on their inventory game. So they've nailed it. They're almost like never in stock and two out of stock. Like, they're some of the best companies that I've seen that's done it. And then on top of that, it's Thread wallets. And then on top of that, by the way, like they're also that's like a sustainability-ish play, like which they never call out. But it's like if you're never overproducing or underproducing and you're just producing, like that's incredible. Now, some people would tell you that like maybe that's not good, like maybe they could ramp up or whatever. And there's definitely arguments like here and there for it. But I think from a brand perspective, if you're like really strong in that value and you're really strong, like if you're really strong in that value, then let's also get really creative in your marketing. And for us, it's been like fun and kind of like a challenge. So, like, what are things that we could suggest on how to market this that aren't a promotion? Like, a promotion is like, I don't want to say a pretty easy way to like get sales, but kind of like it's like definitely low hanging fruit. Like, if I'm feeling
Yeah.
lazy and somebody's like, what can I do to move this product? I'm like, I don't know, put it on sale. And it's like, hold on, like I could like put on my thinking cap and help you think of different campaigns or different ways that we could market this that aren't a sale or that aren't a promotion or, And so I love that
Yeah.
challenge because
Because it's a
it's
challenge. Yeah, it's exciting. It's
yeah, it's
creative.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so that makes a lot of sense. And then Yeah, so it's like you're still holding room for incentivizing customers. It's just not with promotions. Uh,
Yeah, like
yeah.
it might be things like an affiliate program or referral
Hmm.
program. It's also just things with like we heard you were like launching the products that you're looking for, the
Yeah.
patterns that you're looking for. Maybe it's doing like charitable donations or like being better in the community. Maybe it is being like more sustainable. I know for me, like if I can shop sustainably, I'll definitely try to do it, even if I have
Hmm.
to pay a premium for it, and even if I don't have to shop it on a promotion. Um, I've been like super,
Aware.
my eyes aware. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, aware is a great word. I've been super aware of like the waste even that I've caused with like how much I've been buying or like, how much like you cycle through like fashion.
Yeah.
And so it's great when you like can help play a part in that.
Yeah. 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 I very much this new year have started to really tune into like when I want to buy something, sitting back and like thinking for a couple of days of like
Yeah.
what would I use this for? Why would I need it? All this stuff. And like kind of challenge myself to only really shop in a super
Somebody
sustainable way.
this this girl that I met on the train like a couple weeks ago, was saying to me, she tells herself if she's gonna buy something that she's to throw two items out. So she will like literally look at
Oh,
the item and she'll like go to her closet and be like, what are two things in here that I'm really willing to part with, like right now? And if she's not really willing to part with them, she like holds on it. And she said that almost always does the trick. She said like maybe like
wow.
15 to 20% of the time will she go back and be like, this is something that I actually like really want. Like that I'm willing to give up other things for in order to
Yeah.
have.
Oh,
But
that's a
part of that
great way
also
of
was
seeing
like
it.
she had like not a lot of storage space in her apartment. So she was like, part of
Mhm.
it is also like I don't have a lot of storage, but she's like,
Logistics. Yeah. Logistically, I can't have that. Yeah.
like I
Oh,
literally
that's
can't
funny.
squeeze it in. But I
Yeah.
also
It's
like
like
it's
27 Dresses, that movie. I love
yeah.
that movie growing up.
Yeah, she opens the door and they
Hmm.
expand.
Yeah,
So
yeah. Okay, love it. I will tell people to shop, like to look into just like closet cleaning out. The Athleta and Thread Up program. I've used it a
oh,
couple times and it's great. Hmm.
I love Thread Up. I think it's the coolest thing ever.
It's
Like
so awesome. Yeah.
you might be one of the only other people that I've heard that's like uses it because it's like I
I
think
tell
it's
everyone
dope. Like
as
I
much
think
as I
it's
can.
wild.
Like
Yeah,
literally any chance.
it's so
Yeah, I'm
cool.
also a major, major fan of just what they're doing and like I've used the program, obviously,
Same.
multiple times. So I'm glad we have each other in that. Um,
Yes.
I know we're coming up on time, and as much as I want to
Yeah.
continue chatting, this has been an absolute blast, Liz. I could talk to you all day about email marketing. It's super fun, just learning about all the creative things these brands are doing and how they're keeping it fresh and really making sure that the consumer always stays first. Thank you for making the time. I know
Yeah.
you have connected me with some other guests that we have coming up, so I'm really excited to get to chat with them.
Yeah, I'm super stoked about it. I can't wait to see like what their conversations are like because like I think they're people who are like way incredible in the space and like uh the coolest thing I think about even doing any of this has been like I have met so many neat business owners and I've met so many cool businesses with like a purpose that it's like when you can shop like small, some of them aren't
Yeah,
even small, but when you can shop like not at a big conglomerate,
yeah,
I try to because it's like
it makes
it's
a
cool
difference.
putting it does
Hmm.
make a difference. Yeah, they're
Yeah,
employing people and they have missions and values and it's neat. So,
yeah, and it's cool
yeah.
seeing that the relationship if you can, support someone
Yeah.
in your realm. It's
Yeah.
awesome.
My dog's just chilling in the back.
I love it. I love it. What's their name? I see little corner.
His name is Rainier. He's a
Oh,
big
oh my
boy.
gosh.
Yeah.
I wish I was napping on the couch. I
Me
like
too.
that.
Me too. I might go join him.
Yeah, an inspiration for all. Okay, well, we'll end on that note.
Sweet. Talk to you later.